Thanks, Stella. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our first born digital collection, which is the Web Archive. How many of us can recall all 7 candidates from the 2011 presidential election? I bet you could have got a few, but maybe not all of them. It might surprise you to know that the websites for these candidates are all gone from the live web. And they say there's no period so remote as the recent past. Well, here's something from our slightly more recent past. If you could just roll the animation there, Dara, thanks very much. If you type in the address of the Yes Equality website into the live web, this is what you'll see eventually. Nothing. It too is gone from the live web. Some of you might have seen this banner on our website recently. It's from our consultation document on the legal deposit of digital materials. And we think of 19th century newspapers printed on wood pulp as fragile, and of course they are, but our online world is equally fragile and vulnerable to loss if we don't take steps to actively preserve it. And I think you can see that from this stat and from the examples that we've just had a wee look at. But in the National Library of Ireland, we are taking steps to preserve our websites, and we've been working on that for the last 6 years. So, just to remind everybody what a web archive is, it's a collection of websites gathered and preserved for long-term access and use. And naturally, the focus of our collecting is websites of Irish interest. Many national libraries established their web archives as a continuation of their collecting of the published outputs of their countries. So we're following in their footsteps, the footsteps of the National Library of Australia, the UK, Portugal, who are working to preserve their national digital heritage and provide essential research sources for their research community. Tomorrow's researchers will look to the web. Today's are just beginning to see its value. And earlier this morning, Lorcan spoke about active remembrance. And for contemporary collections, part of that is to ensure digital preservation, active digital preservation. So to come back to the sites that we looked at earlier, and maybe we look at that animation for this one, we've seen that the websites for the 2011 presidential election are all gone. So how would a researcher answer the question about where were the key communication messages issued by the candidates? Well, you could find that in the NLI's Web Archive. We're looking here at the Sean Gallagher's website here and his press releases section. And I should say that Irish politics is a key collection strength of the Web Archive. The archive contains every general election and referenda from 2011, all the party sites, many candidate sites, and most recently, social media in the form of YouTube and Twitter. In terms of the marriage equality referendum, there's a wee animation there as well. That was one of the most significant referenda of recent years. But how did the Yes Equality campaign brief its canvassers, the people who went out on the street? Well, you won't find the answer to that on the live web, but it is here on the Yes Equality site in the NLI Web Archive. And you can see as we're navigating through the site that it looks and feels like a live site, and that's what we aim to achieve with our technical partners, Internet Memory, that it operates exactly like the site the day it was archived. And at the end here you can see that you can also download a PDF, which depending on your research question could be a primary source. Now, we're stepping right up to the present day. Everybody loves a makeover, but it's not good for digital preservation. As well as sites disappearing from the web, they're constantly changing, some more radically than others. And earlier this year, we were approached by the central bank, just as they were about to go live with their really new designed site. And as a result of them making contact with us, we were able to archive their old site before it was replaced. And we were really delighted about this for 2 reasons. One, it was proof to us of the growing awareness of the NLI Web Archive, and that is really due to the advocacy work of our 2016 web archivist. And also because her work on that project critically has also increased awareness among content creators and publishers, and our collaboration with them can improve our ability to preserve vulnerable sites like this, and we think that it marks a new phase in the maturity of our born digital collections. Internationally, it's only in the last 5 years that historians of various hues have started to show an interest in the web archives, and researchers have become involved in the process of collection building with web archivists. And that emergence of interest has coincided with the beginnings of the NLI Web Archive in 2011, with the pilot projects that Della initiated on the presidential and general election. Our largest project to date, Remembering 1916, Recording 2016, was part of the library's programme for the 2016 commemorations. And 2016 presented us, and everybody in this room, I guess, with outreach opportunities at local, national and international level, and most significantly for us, provided not just those opportunities, but some resources to work on this project from our parent department. And so we were able to engage a web archivist to work on the Remembering project for us, which has archived over 450 sites relating to the commemorations last year. And that project also significantly increased our engagement with our key stakeholders, including the academic community, and for the first time it enabled us to extensively publicise the web archive to reach new users, as well as raising its profile among website publishers, and they're the folks that you're looking at here. This photograph of the publishers is publishers of sites which won our Public Call Awards in December. These were sites that the public voted which best remembered the events of 1916, so commemorative websites, and websites that best reflected life in Ireland in 2016. Today our web archive has over 1,200 websites, archived many times over the last 6 years. We archive around themes, events. We capture and preserve vulnerable sites. In terms of the type of content, politics, as I've mentioned, unsurprising for a cultural institution, culture and creativity. We archive around social issues like health and welfare, the housing crisis, and also unsurprisingly, we archive the sites of government and Irish state as well. In terms of getting at what's in it, there's an A to Z browse list of sites, and also an URL and full text search, a little less useful. Because the sites themselves are part of curated library collections, we consider them high value, so we've created a catalogue record for all of them in our library catalogue, and there's a link to the archived site there. And part of our work, our process for creating the collections is a permissions process. So that enables us to provide those sites openly online, not just on site, but online. And Kate mentioned earlier the importance of contextual information, and that's also really relevant to web archives. It's something that researchers find particularly valuable. So we've included that on the library's website with scope and content information for our collections. What was the rationale for doing that collection? How many sites are in it? When did we do it? Any other points of interest or technical pieces of information? So, born digital collections are constantly evolving, and so is collecting. To fulfill our mandate for the 21st century, we had to respond to the challenges of collecting and preserving born digital material. From its birth as a pilot project in 2011, selective web archiving has grown to broaden out the scope of its collecting in line with the library's general collection development policy. Della has described to you the library's commitment to developing our capacity to collect born digital material and how that led to restructuring and the establishment of our digital collections department in 2015 and an improved web archive public platform that year as well. With our new department in place and resources for a specific 2016 programme from the Department of Arts, our team, which, as Della has said, is a mixture of curatorial and technical skills, were able to scale up our activities for 2016, which is just as well, because I think that turned out to be a really busy year for everybody in this room. So, the online presence of last year's commemorations and the general election is preserved in the web archive for researchers, and increased engagement and outreach has led to greater collaborative collection building with the research community and content creators. And that's something that we're really keen to develop. We want to work with content creators more, whether that's the creators of the unique digital material that Della spoke to you about earlier, or website publishers. So I hope I've given you a little flavour of selective web archiving. This year we're planning a new addition to Born Digital Collections, when we'll be archiving at large scale by carrying out a national domain crawl. We'll make this freely available online if copyright legislation allows that. After this year, we plan to carry out annual domain crawls so that the Irish web will be captured and made available for researchers, and there'll be more details on that later in the year. We'll also be working to ingest born digital content into our repository and make it available in innovative ways, including the thousands of PDFs and other documents which are present on the websites that we archive. So the slide on discovery that you saw earlier, we hope that will change. The RL UK report on unique and distinct collections noted that the UDCs of the future will include a much higher proportion of born digital materials. That future is here now, whether we like it or not. Irish-born digital resources are primary resources and unique and distinctive qualities to them which can inspire research. I hope you've seen from what we've shared with you that the NLI is committed to collecting, preserving and sharing these resources by collaboration and by learning from what's worked and what's not worked, whether that's for ourselves or others. Born digital is a challenge, and the advice from digital preservation experts that we're trying to keep in mind is not to wait until something is perfect. Have a go, see what happens, and learn from it. Or as the boss might say, just keep your eyes on the road, and darling, don't look back.